Thank you. I come from a time back in the day, 1936. Jesse Owens was in Germany and brought home 4 gold medals. And when he got back to the United States, Roosevelt did not even recognize him. So I say that because we have a lot of great artists who were not recognized at the time they lived. They were vilified, they were messed over. Paul Robeson, Hazel Scott. I mean, I can go on with the names. So when I came along, I didn't know what I wanted to be. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I grew up in a family that was very black positive. When Joe Louis won the fight, we went around the block banging on cans and screaming and yelling, and Joe Louis won the fight. I came up in the time of the radio, so we heard everything. I heard Orson Welles when he did the speech about the space people coming to Earth, and we were running out in the backyard looking to him because they did it as a news piece. They didn't say we're going to do this now. They said we interrupt this program to bring you a special news flash, and we were running around the yard acting crazy. And people were afraid. A lot of people were very afraid because they felt that the people coming from space were going to really do something. But anyway, this is a little piece that was done on CBS.
We end tonight with a view of America through the lens of a trailblazing photographer. Michelle Miller has his pictures and his story.
Love you, man.
Love you too,
wonderful.
Man. At a recent book signing in Harlem, the personal vision of 80-year-old photographer Adger Cowans was on full display.
I've never had a book of my work before.
For Cowans, it started in rural Ohio, growing up in the midst of the Great Depression. In 1958, he became one of the first African Americans to earn a degree in photography from Ohio State. He decided to write a letter to the only black photographer he'd ever heard of, Gordon Parks, whose images of the Jim Crow South made him world famous.
He said, well, you can live here with me and my family, and you can work with me at Life magazine.
He would work with Parks for 2 years before pointing his own lens toward everyday life. Cowans says it took more emotion than skill.
I feel. That's what I do. When I take a picture, I feel it. When you get that rush or you get that feeling inside of you, you say, I have it. I know I have it. I felt it.
By the mid-'60s, he was capturing celebrities like Dizzy Gillespie, Sammy Davis, Sarah Vaughan, and Mick Jagger.
Well, take it easy, for God's sake.
But it would be on movie sets like On Golden Pond where Cowans would make history, becoming the first African-American Hollywood still photographer.
What reaction did you get?
First of all, when they saw me, they assumed that I was there to deliver something. Well, what's this black guy doing? There was nobody else black on the set.
He has worked on more than 30 films, and even at 80, he's still expanding his craft.
What does your huge book of talent say about you and what you've meant?
I don't think like that. Spirit touches me and something comes out. It belongs to the world. It doesn't belong to me.
Okay, man.
And now everyone can have their own copy.
Tamara, how do you see?
Michelle Miller, CBS News, New York.
And that's the CBS Evening News for tonight. For all of us at CBS News, all around the world, good night.
Actually, I graduated from Ohio University, not Ohio State. And I only worked with Gordon Parks for a whole summer. So there were some mistakes there. And Columbus, Ohio was not rural. I lived in the city. Okay. What did I do? This one. Okay, this is the cover of the book. This book took 3 years to put together because I think the publisher did not quite understand African American culture, so I was going back and forth with them about certain pictures that they took out of the book. So I had to tell them, this is important, that's important, et cetera, et cetera. So it took 3 years to get this book together. But it's great. It's 288 pages, and it's pretty nice, hefty book. 4 pounds it weighs, so you better bring your weights with you.
Did you want me to press this for you?
Okay. Okay, the first picture. No, that's not the first picture. Let's go to this one. Yeah. This is the family that I grew up in. This is my mother's family. I did not grow up in the hood. I grew up in a house that my father owned. My mother played the piano. I played the trumpet. I went to church, Sunday school, etc., etc. So I grew up with my mother teaching me love and defining your dreams. My father's lesson was humbleness and hard work. I mean hard work. My father did not play. So when I got my first camera, this is back in the day, they had this system where you could pay and play later, you know. So I went down to the local store because when I was a little boy, my mother would put me on the bus and send me down to pay the bills. And she would tell the bus driver, take him down, wait for him, you know, pick him up and bring him back. So I knew where Lazarus was. So I went down. My father's name is Adger Cowans, and mine is Adger Cowans. So I went down and I signed his name, my name, Adger W. Cowans. And I got a brand new camera and I got a hi-fi set. The cost was about $300 and some odd. My father had a royal fit. He tried to kill me. And my mother said, honey, it's your oldest son. Okay. I said, I'm gonna kill him. So I said, I'll pay you back, I promise. And I did finally pay him back. But every one of the people in this picture, my grandfather, I'm sitting beside my grandfather, this is probably 1947, 48. Every one of these people defined themselves. There were no stragglers in my family. Everybody did something. My grandfather worked on the railroad as an oiler. An oiler was a big time job. And I think the big thing about my grandfather was that he was a very quiet man. He used what I called the black unspoken language. If my grandmother say something to him, he said, mm-hmm. She said, well, you know, George, my son, he said, mm-hmm. She said, well, I want to know, he said, mm. So my grandfather, we were really tight, you know. So he took me a lot of places. He took me to the circus, you know, all these different places. My Uncle Wilbur was a traveling man, a hobo. He traveled the hobo route. He was a confidence man. He was a stick-up man. He was a detective. He was a bouncer. He followed a circus. And he got arrested. He was in jail for a few years. But he was quite a character, and I'm trying to write about his life and his story. My other uncle was a fireman. The other uncle was a policeman. My father was a butler. So all these people did something. My aunt worked for Kennedy. My mother was a very, even though she was a housewife, so to speak, my mother was very adventurous. Even to the last years of her life, she was studying how to do hotel management. She was very progressive. So that's the kind of family that I grew up in. This is one of the earliest pictures I took. I was in the Navy in 1958 in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And I took this picture. It just was a picture to me that was like, here we go again, you know. But I felt that there was something here that was indicative of the time. And in Virginia Beach, Virginia, at that time, there was a beach. And I went there with a friend and with my Navy uniform on. And she said, well, we can't go to that end of the beach. I said, why not? She said, but that's where the white people go. I said, well, I don't know that. She said, well, yeah, but everybody around here knows that. Don't do that, don't do that. You get us in trouble. So, of course, me and Terry and Melvin walked down there anyway. And, of course, the police came, you know, and then they had to call the MPs, and the MPs brought us back to the base. I mean, what are you guys trying to do? Because at that time, the servicemen couldn't mix. you know. And I had a buddy from New York, a white guy, and he loved fried chicken. So I told him, I said, you can get some reverse racism. I get in the car and get in the back and get on the floor. And I drove to Lil's Grill and got some fried chicken, gave him the backseat, and drove back to the base. But that's the way it was then. Now Virginia Beach, Virginia is like a fantastic resort place where a lot of people like to go. But this is one of my earliest pictures. This is called Icarus. You know the story of Icarus. He drove too close. His father, Apollo, drove the wagon that carried the sun across the sky in the morning. So when he was sleeping one morning, Icarus said, oh, let me do it. And he jumped in the wagon, but he didn't realize that his wings were made of wax and he fell. So that's what that's about. That's the next picture. This picture is that I took, this is Icarus. Now, mind you, these pictures were all taken before digital. This is all negative images. So the concept of photography to me is the ability to understand how to capture light. You know, not every picture is a photograph. You know, people use photography nowadays in all kinds of ways, but I think for me, it's the understanding and the qualities of light that make a photograph. And I think you have to understand light, first of all, in order to make a photograph that has meaning. Everybody's got a camera nowadays, a digital camera, and they shoot, but it's one flat picture. There's no depth. You can't focus in on a portrait and have everything else in the background play. So there's a concept behind photography and understanding light. I tell my students, you take pictures with your heart and not with your eyes. If there's no emotion in the picture, it doesn't work. It has to move people, but you have to be moved first. This is a picture I took in New York, Lower Manhattan. I just loved it. And these are early pictures. These are like 1959, 1960. I got out of the Navy in 1960 and I moved to New York and it snowed like mad. This is a picture from that time. And I finally had gotten a Leica. My aunt told me that if I did good in school, that maybe she would give me the $300 to buy a Leica. That was the camera in those days. Cartier-Bresson used a Leica. Eugene Smith used a Leica. I had to have a Leica. So it was $300 in those days. Now a Leica is about, the top one is about $6,000. This was taken in the neighborhood that I lived in, 150th Street near Commandant. This is 145th Street. This is a picture I took of a friend of mine's child. She's now 55 years old. But I felt that this had the feeling of the innocence of a child. This is one of my early nudes, figures. I mean, there were things that I lived by in terms of quotes. You know, Duke Ellington said, "Cast your bread upon the water, and it will come back buttered." Art is the outward expression of inner development. And I think that you have to have enough experience in life, I think, to be able to say something. You have to be able to live and die and yet live again. Because in life, whether you do something or you don't do anything, life will come by and move you. So do something with energy that's been given to you, because every one of us is a slice of the spirit. So get in touch with that inner voice that's in you, and then you can get the work done. It's not outside of you, it's inside of you. And if you listen to that little voice, the little voice tells you, you know, you shouldn't have done that. You know, you shouldn't have said that about her. You know, gossiping and being angry. Being angry, that's a real joke and a real bad, how shall I say, concept that's been given to people. Hate white people. That's, not all white people are bad. There's some bad black people too. You see, hate will stop you from doing the work that you have to do because you'll be consumed with gossiping about somebody else. Oh, look at that dress she had on. She thinks she's cute. You know, those kinds of things will keep you away from doing your work. Being on your cell phone every minute. You won't get any work done. You're living your life on the cell phone. And that's a trick bag. All they have to do is knock that thing out of the sky and you will not be able to get on there. That happened during the World Trade incident. And you know, people stand around, I can't get on myself. Of course you can. This is another figure. I call this lace. These are all early pictures. I'd say 1960 to about maybe 70. Kids playing in the street. The shadow. I felt that man is on a shadow. We're all shadows. You know, we think that we're solid, but we're 75% water. And if you've ever seen anybody, and I have, jump from a building, they go splat. In the movies, it's like different, but you know, you're made of water and electricity and oxygen, and people are killing the earth. And in killing the earth, they're killing you. You're killing yourself. You don't understand what these things are about. And life is beautiful. Life is beautiful. Early portrait. I wanted to show the beauty of a black woman. You know, all those things that we say we don't like, the big nose and the big lips, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But she's a beautiful woman. This is a friend of mine and his two sons at an opening. Danny Johnson's an artist, and he's trying to make a deal with these guys in the back to buy his work. And his two sons, they have no idea what's going on. They're just having a good time playing around, you know. I just thought it was a great picture. I took this picture when I got my first camera. I guess I was probably in high school when I took this picture, probably 1954. It's self-explanatory, I think. Sarah Vaughan, Newport Jazz, 1961. Some more sayings. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Eleanor Roosevelt. Art does not represent the visual, but makes visual. Paul Klee. This is the Bronx, 1961. This is a shadow of me. I do a lot of shadow pictures. I shot this in my backyard where I was growing up at 259 Taylor Avenue. This is in New York when they had the subway seats that were braided like that. I just like that picture a lot. This was taken in Columbus, Ohio. This is probably 1954, 55. Malcolm X, 1963. I saw Malcolm many times in Harlem. On 116th Street, there was a box that different people would come and talk. And everybody would get up there and talk. Anybody had anything to say, they would get up there and say. And Malcolm would talk, and it was fantastic. And people were afraid. People talk about Malcolm being a great hero, and he was. But at that time, when Malcolm was talking this stuff, black people said, "Oh man, you can't be saying that. You know, white people are gonna be mad at us. You know, everybody." They all mumbled. They were afraid. They were afraid. It's like when Charlie Parker started playing what he played. People said, man, what is that stuff? You're supposed to go doom, 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 doom. And he was doing something else. This is out my window, 150th Street and Convent Avenue, 1961. I just got out of the Navy. I did a lot of work with Abby Lincoln. This was one of the last pictures of the cover I did for her. I did a book called Black Men and Their Mother's Sacred Bond. I photographed a lot of my artist friends. This is Al Loving, coming out of his studio on 42nd Street. This is Ali holding the mic for Stevie Wonder. And it was really funny because he said, you know, hey man, he said, that mic's not working, let me hold it. And he got up on stage. I mean, it was just fantastic. This is from the movie, The Cotton Club. Cole Scott and his son, Robert Cole Scott, the painter. Mick Jagger. Everybody says, how you get that shot? Well, I was in Brazil 1968, and I met him at the hotel. My sister said, oh, he's down by the hotel. I said, I don't care about Mick Jagger. He don't mean nothing to me. He stole all that stuff. What are you talking about? So I went down and met him later on. He seemed to be a nice guy. And the first thing he said to me was, hey man, you know, you guys got any drugs? I said, see, first time you meet a black cat, the first thing you're gonna say, do we have drugs? I told him, come on up to the room. This is him on the plane when we went to Bahia. Rakim, your man, Tupac, Danny Glover, Spike Lee. You know who that is. Diana Carroll, Gloria Foster, Gordon Parks Jr., Gordon Parks, Max Roach, the fabulous, the fantastic drummer Max Roach, Mel. She's a great actress, Novella Nelson. Ozzie Davis, directing the movie Cotton Comes to Harlem. I went to Mississippi. I got a grant from the Whitney Foundation. I went to Mississippi. I was there the week after Medgar Evers was killed, and they were singing and everything, and Pete Seeger was there. I just loved the picture. Romy, Roy DiCarava, Stan Getz, Vincent Smith, Intozaki Shange. I do a lot of experimenting too. This is a series that I did called The Morning of the Blue Queen. This is when I experimented with the Polaroid S670. I invented a bypass instrument that allowed me to make several exposures. This is another one. 1975 I did these. This is my ode to Coltrane. It's called Love Supreme. My new work looks like this. It's light. Another one. Light structures. Another one. And this is in the African American Historical Cultural Museum in DC. Thank you. One more thing.